All right, people, welcome back to another A-League show where today we're here to mainly talk about Sydney FC because last weekend was a long weekend, literally and figuratively. I went down to Melbourne for the Big Blue on Australia Day. I also saw Melbourne City versus Adelaide at Amy Park the night before, and yeah, it was a journey, and it was fun overall, but it took a lot of energy out of me, so I hardly watched the Saturday night games, and on Sunday, I put on Perth versus Macarthur to watch. I fell asleep at kickoff and then woke up for David Williams' goal to equalise for Perth. So, yeah, I didn't really get to watch too much A-League, but the A-League I did get to watch was fun and informative, so I still want to share my opinions on that because, yeah, as I said, I went to two pretty interesting games. The first one was Melbourne City beating Adelaide United 1-0, and when I said this game was interesting, I was more talking about the other game that I saw. This game wasn't very interesting. Terry Antonis scored a banger early on. 5 minutes in, he scored from outside the box and put Melbourne City 1-0 up. The game ebbed and flowed. It was boring. I think there were a few chances for either side, but really nothing happened up until Iran Kunda in the second half won the ball back off the last man for Melbourne City, dribbled towards goal about 40 metres, and then screwed up a one-on-one with Jamie Young, which I think is unacceptable for an 18-year-old. How dare he screw up a one-on-one? No one else that's ever been successful in football has ever screwed up a one-on-one. But, yeah, he screwed up a one-on-one against Jamie Young. And, yeah, I saw he was getting comforted afterwards, which, good. Because, yeah, I don't know, were people shit-talking Iran Kunda for missing a one-on-one? It may have happened. I think I saw people angry about it, but I don't know. Either way, point is, it happens. But it cost Adelaide the game. And now Adelaide sit in 8th outside the finals, and Melbourne City sit in 6th, 3 points ahead inside the finals position. So, yeah, Melbourne City, huge win for them, big loss for Adelaide, and that was me Thursday night. Otherwise, yeah, I didn't really do much in Melbourne on Thursday. I had to wait till 2 o'clock to check into my hotel, which hasn't happened much this season. But yeah, it really sucked to have to wait to check into my hotel. But, yeah, otherwise, oh, and my shoes on Thursday. It started raining in Melbourne. I only packed, like, clothes for when it's hot. And my shoes were really old and had gotten slick on the surface. So when it started raining in Melbourne, I couldn't grip up on the pavement and I was slipping everywhere. So I had to go buy new shoes, which I've got here. And this was not actually supposed to be part of the video. But I realized that this won't have any length if I don't recount random stuff. So, yeah, I bought shoes in Melbourne and I left my other ones on the floor of the hotel. I hope they don't try and return them to me. I did give them my address when I was checking in, so maybe that wasn't good. But, yeah, that was Thursday. Then, Saturday came the Big Blue. There was also the women's game, which was pretty good. Honestly, I felt a bit sleepy during it. I'd been up since like 9 o'clock in the morning drinking. So, yeah, I was a bit groggy during the women's game and spent it recovering, pulling myself back for the men's game, like a proper sexist. And, yeah, the men's game had a great crowd. There was a huge home turnout. There was a massive away turnout. And, yeah, both sides were in full voice. You could hear the away bay, the South Terrace, and the North Terrace all across the stadium. And it was just a proper big night for the A-League. And it wasn't a free-to-air game because I think it was on Friday. It was Australia Day, obviously, but I can't remember the days. So, yeah, that'd be a shame if it wasn't a free-to-air game. But, yeah, it just looked like a really big spectacle overall. And, yeah, on field as well, it was a great game for about 37 minutes. Sydney FC started quite strong. Jordan Courtney-Perkins should have had a double. Our backup left-back should have had a double. Actually, he hasn't even been our backup left back half the time this season. But, yeah, He scored early on. I was actually more surprised when he scored that we had like a corner routine, because usually we just whip it in and it seems like we're hoping Rodwell will be in there. That doesn't work very well when he's injured. So yeah, we had to try something else, and we went to Bratton at the back stick. He took a shot. Terrible. It deflected, ping-ponged around, or pinballed around the Melbourne box and fell to Courtney Perkins, who finished it. And I thought he may have been offside, but he wasn't. And Sydney FC were 1-0 up, and we could have gone 2-0 up in about the 16th minute. Jordan Courtney Perkins had another opportunity, but he blasted it at Paul Izzo. And then Machach went down the other end, or not Machach, Melbourne Victory went down the other end. There was a scuffle in the box, and then Machach cleaned up and pulled one back for Melbourne Victory. And from then on, it seemed like a very tough game. Melbourne Victory were the side that were definitely not dominant, but they seemed to be the more proactive side in that game. But Sydney FC were meeting them every step of the way. We were in their face, we were pressing them, we were defending well, and we were creating chances of our own. And then in about the 36th minute, Adama Traore and Paddy Wood are going for the ball. The referee stops the game because Adama Traore takes a tumble and goes over to the VAR booth. It happened a lot longer than this. I was actually very confused as to what was happening in the stadium. I was sitting quite high up, and yeah, it didn't seem like that big of an incident from what I could see. And then watching it on the telly, it didn't seem like that big of an incident. But the dickhead ref is over near the VAR booth or whatever, looking at it, and I need to say that there weren't very good angles that they showed at the ground or on the TV coverage. Like, they didn't give a very good perspective of what happened. But again, I don't even think you really needed them to. I don't think you needed to zoom up. That's not something you need to zoom in on. The contact was minimal. They were both going for the ball. It was never a red card. And, I mean, if his on-field decision as well wasn't to give a red card, then it's kind of hard to overturn that. And, it was really disappointing to see, because it kind of killed the game from a Sydney FC perspective. And I feel like the only people that would have liked that red card were Melbourne Victory. Because, it was just looking like a good game. It would have been really entertaining. Even if you weren't particularly rooting for Sydney FC, if you wanted to watch a good game of football, Paddy Wood not getting sent off would have been good. So, yeah, it was a shame that he got sent off because it killed the game. But here's where I get to give Sydney FC credit. We were impeccable for the rest of the game. And, we weren't technically perfect. We didn't keep the tightest ship of all time or anything, but the effort from the players was there in abundance. And you could see it. Redmayne came up with some saves. The defenders were pulling off last-ditch tackles, working their asses off. The midfield too, the forwards as well. I don't really remember any clear-cut chances late to win the game, but yeah, they were there working, and, we held on against Melbourne Victory, who, in my opinion, didn't really look like they deserved to score after Paddy Wood got sent off. So that's a testament to Sydney FC. And, of course, we get a draw against Melbourne Victory, which is not good for us. We're now 2 points outside of the top 6, still within 3, which is very good considering how we started the season. But it doesn't leave us in a good position, but it leaves Wellington Phoenix in a good position. They beat Newcastle on Saturday 2-1. Oscar Zawada came back and scored the winner for them. And they have gone 2 points clear at the top of the table, which I like to see, because if there's any team I want to see win the A-League, aside from Sydney FC, it's Wellington Phoenix. And how good... If Melbourne Victory fell off, no signs of it happening, but if it did happen, how good would it be to see a Mariners Wellington title race? I think that would be fun to watch, because as a neutral, I wouldn't really care. Wellington went clear at the top of the table. Otherwise, Western Sydney beat Western United in Hobart. I'm going there next weekend. I'll talk about that later, but Western United are crap. I hope we don't lose to them. And Mariners beat Brisbane 2-0. And, of course, I mentioned earlier that Perth and Macarthur drew 2-2. So, those were the games last week. As I said, I mostly cared about the Sydney FC game. I think it was a decent result for us. I would have liked to have gotten a win against Melbourne Victory, but, you know, assuming we're going to make finals, which we shouldn't, because it's going to be a tough battle for the rest of the season, but if we make finals, there's a good chance we'll play Melbourne Victory at some point. So, yeah, I hope we can beat them, but, yeah, it'd be kind of sad if we didn't get a win against Melbourne Victory this season. I'd like to be able to fight, at least, for the opportunity to beat them one more time this season. So, yeah, hopefully we can see that come to fruition, but it's better than a loss. So, I'll take it. And, yeah, let's talk about next week, which starts with Brisbane versus Wellington, which I think is an interesting matchup because Wellington, playing away from home last week, playing away from home this week, you know, sometimes they can be a bit dodgy away from home. And Brisbane have been good this season. They've also signed Marco Rojas till the end of the season. So he could potentially bring life under the new management. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there because I could see it being a bit of a banana peel for Wellington. But they are a good side. I am hoping they win the league. So I'm going to tip a 3-1 Wellington win. Also, Brisbane have still been atrocious recently, so yeah, not too much credit to them. Then Perth Glory are at home to Melbourne City. I'd love to see an upset here, but I feel like Melbourne City, their being on the up is looking good right now, and yeah, they'll probably beat Perth, who actually, I mean, 2 good results in the last 2 weeks, but yeah, they're going back home. They'll be brought back down to reality. And Melbourne City will beat them. I think, yeah, they're just a better side. Although, I don't know. I'm tempted. I'm tempted by Perth. Like, they've looked good against MacArthur and Western Sydney Wanderers. I mean, mainly West Sydney, but, you know, they've still looked good against MacArthur and obviously picked up a big result. Melbourne City against Adelaide, like, they were okay. They did win the game. They made some good... Jamie Young made 2 good saves. Otherwise, they were pretty solid defensively. Like, I feel like Melbourne City is solid, but Perth maybe have more goals in them, especially with McLaren not being at his best, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know about that one. I'll go Melbourne City just to be safe. Then, on Saturday, I've got Sydney FC away to Western United in Hobart, which will be fun, I hope. I had a great time in Hobart last year. I love North Hobart Oval. And yeah, I think I'm staying at one of the more exciting, I'm more excited to stay at this hotel that I'm staying at than any other hotel I've stayed at this season. So yeah, I'm excited to see how all of it goes. But on field, we should be beating Western United. Western Sydney have just played them. They've come away with a win. It was a 1-0 win, so maybe Sydney FC should be a bit wary, but if Western Sydney can beat Western United, we don't want to be losing to them because, you know, we want to compare ourselves to Western Sydney. We want to see ourselves above Western Sydney come the end of the season. And, yeah, if we were to lose to the same opposition they beat a week after, that would just kind of be depressing. So, yeah, hopefully we don't do that. There's no more insight I need to give than, yeah, Western are crap and we're not. We should be putting them away in the first half because our second halves sometimes stink. And then, yeah, Newcastle versus Melbourne Victory. Also that day, come on, Newcastle. Yeah, hopefully Newcastle win that one. Melbourne Victory, drew with Sydney FC. Maybe Newcastle could get something. But, yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to go for a Newcastle upset. They did put a few past Melbourne Victory earlier in the season. It was only Bruno Fallen-Rolly that got them past with a hat-trick or whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to go for a Newcastle 3-2 win against Melbourne Victory for some reason. Then Adelaide away or at home against Central Coast. I want to go Central Coast. Adelaide absolutely drubbed them early on in the season and were dubbed, you know, title contenders because of it in the, you know, subsequent 7-0 smashing of Melbourne City. Central Coast since then have got 6 points ahead of Adelaide and they're starting to show that they are a different level to Adelaide. So I think Central Coast have a point to prove. It's the main game of the weekend, and I will have them beating Adelaide 3-1. I'm just making up a score, but I think the Mariners will have a good shot at winning. They've been fantastic lately. And then to end off the round, we've got another attempted forced derby in MacArthur versus Western Sydney Wanderers at Campbelltown. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm assuming there'll be a big Western Sydney away attendance and a small MacArthur attendance. And you know what? I'm going to go MacArthur to win here. It's a massive game. They sit 4th and 5th on the table. And if MacArthur win, they go above West Sydney. If West Sydney win, they could potentially go into 2nd if Melbourne Victory lose. So, yeah, there's a lot to play for here. And I think it'll be a massive game. But I think MacArthur have been really good this season. And if they play their best football, they can beat Western Sydney. Because Western Sydney, They have had some really good games, obviously, but they've also had some pretty dreadful ones lately. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're get-outable. So I'll go MacArthur to win the final game. But guys, this has been a pretty haphazard A-League show. As I said, I had a long weekend down in Melbourne and I didn't get to watching as much of the other games as I wanted. I know there's been a bit of news coming around the A-League recently, but I was not asked to read up on that at the minute. I'll touch on it if it's important next week. But yeah, I hope you have enjoyed my minor insights into the football. And I will see you guys next time I make a video, which will be next week. Bye-bye. And fuck the tards.